Welcome to the Fire Away Podcast. Podcast that is the Fire Away Podcast. Oh yeah, here we go. Let's do it.
Welcome back to another episode of Fire Away Podcast. I'm your host Fred, sitting here with Matt Williams. Mr. Matt, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, buddy. Hey, we'd like to appreciate everybody for jumping on here. Just remind you, you can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify. We are on Instagram at fire_away. So, man, come on, jump on. Listen to what we got going on here, and
hit that follow button.
Yeah, please do so. So, what's going on, man? How are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm in there, man.
Finally warm outside.
When I say how are you, you can't just fire right back with a how are you. I'd like you to tell me how are you, and then you can come back to how are you. And we're just kind of going back and forth on how are yous. But I know, still, what's going on, buddy?
Not much. Glad the weather's finally warming up.
Are you kidding me? Shoot, man. Bring on the heat. Everybody like, I want spring. Spring can kiss my hiney. I want the hot weather,
Yes.
brother. Bring it on.
The hotter the better.
I got the pool at the house, and so I've got that springy cover on top. We had a softball tournament this last weekend, and I got hot on Sunday. Cold as hell on my girls were in sweatshirts still, like freezing their butts off because they got hit with the rain in the very first game. That second game was cold, windy, sweatshirts on, wet, miserable, and then come next day, sweating, hot, needing water, miserable.
Took the cover off the pool?
Well, no. She wanted me to. She was begging me to, but she was kind of running across the top of the cover because it's one of those squishy covers. So, just playing around. So now she thinks she can do that every day, begging me to take the cover off. But bring on the hot weather, man.
Yes,
bring on the hot weather. So we got a guest today. You're going to be interviewing a guest today. I understand that this gentleman used to work for Fireline.
Sure did.
So when I got here in 2014, he wasn't here.
No.
So he was just a memory when I got here. But I'd heard a lot about him. I know Zach had left Fireline for a little bit and worked with this guy. Come back. So I would have to assume that the gentleman you're going to interview, I'm going to hold off on his name for a minute, may know what he's doing, because when Zach came back as a much, not that he wasn't a good technician, but a good guy, but a much more knowledgeable technician, and that really shows. So he must have got some good tutelage under this gentleman. So, waiting to hear the story and see how it all goes from there, where he came from, how he was here, how long was here, how you know him.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Credit him with saving my life.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Are we going to hear that story?
I'm sure we will.
I'm hoping so, man. The more stories, the better. So, yeah, I'm hoping he jumps on here. You guys have a great conversation. We're looking forward to it. So, without further ado, we're going to bring in Mr.
John Pletcher.
John Pletcher.
Yeah.
All right. Ready, Robert?
All righty. Welcome to the show, John Pletcher with Pletcher Fire Protection. How are you, John?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, not too bad. So, John worked at Fireline for many years. Actually got me started here. So we're just going to go over Fireline, what you're doing now, and just anything in between. Any stories you got?
No stories whatsoever after so many years. None. So we don't have that much time. So no. Thanks for having me. It was just kind of interesting when you hit me up saying, "Hey, give me a brief hit. Come on down. Let's talk about some history of Fireline and stuff." I said, I got some history, I believe. We can talk about some stuff. I know a couple people here.
Just a couple.
Or 50% or more. But there's a whole other generation here that I don't know. I haven't seen. It's wild coming in and seeing these new people, and you see these kids anymore, and I'm like, wow. When I started, I was a kid, and I'm like, holy cow. I'm like, these kids are like my kids' age and stuff. But then it's also good to see some of the people that I used to work with, like coming in the the driveway this morning. I seen Charlie going out.
Did you?
Morning, so.
I told him you were going to be here.
Yeah,
today.
well, and he actually waved. Whether or not he was just being polite, that I didn't run him off the road, or he actually knew who it was. But no, it's good to see some of the old faces.
And the buildings look a little bit different.
A little bit. I'd say, yeah, it's pretty nice here anymore. It's very flashy. I love it. So,
now, when you started Fireline, was John running it when you started?
No, Steve was.
When you started.
John was still here. He was. I don't want to use the term part-time because I don't know exactly what his role was at the time, but I know Steve was really running the show. And you've seen Steve on a daily basis, and yeah, so that's how that was.
One of my favorite stories after you got me started here was one of the we had what we call a small snowstorm. And you and I made it in that morning, and we were walking over by Karen's office at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I show up and we're standing there. And I just remember Steve walking through the door, and he says, "You mean to tell me the 2 guys from Pennsylvania can come to work, but no one down here can?"
Well, you know what? Snow, sleet, rain, we deliver. That's what we do, you had that expectation that we were not exactly next door, but, we knew that, hey, we had to make it happen.
Yep.
So, because we were so far away, and it was great that they gave us, that opportunity that they knew we were far away.
Oh,
we had to,
sure.
we had to make it work. So yeah, a lot of those days. So
I think at that time we were probably 2 of the furthest away from the Baltimore office anyway.
yeah, I would say so. On a normal day, it was an hour and a half commute if we had to come to the shop, and that's not factoring in, the west side
Yes.
or, the tunnel closures or
The good old
whatever.
Beltway.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Just a quick backstory for those. I know in the introduction, I credited you with saving my life, right? So for those of you who don't know, I've known John for a lot of years, one of my best friends. And when I was getting ready to graduate high school, my parents said the only 2 things you can do is go to college or in the military. So they were really trying hard to get me to go in the Marine Corps. And John said, "What about fire protection?" Because I knew I was not going in the military. So I said, "What the heck? Graduating high school is something new. If I don't like it, I got plenty of time to change my mind." So I just remember, of course I got fought by my parents because, you're just going to work with a friend. It's never going to work out. But here I am 18 years later. So I could have been in the military overseas somewhere and not made it back, but
I don't know. There's some days on the job I didn't think we were coming back. So, but, no. I mean, this industry is never going away. It's a great industry to get in, and it's even a better industry to stay in, because the knowledge it's ever increasing. There's more stuff to learn all the time. The better you are, the more recognition you get, the more people you'll meet, the products that are coming out, the innovation. It's great. It really is. And that's what's, I am now going on, oh boy, 26 years, I guess now. I was started
in fire protection.
When I started with Fireline, when Fireline had the Lancaster branch.
Okay.
I started with them.
Now, what did you start out doing?
Anything. So I was hired as a portable fire extinguisher / helping install kitchen suppression.
Okay.
Lancaster was very big on the pre-engineered side of things. Yeah, they had a couple old halon systems that they installed through when they acquired. It was called George B. Clare and Associates, and then when Fireline acquired them, they were bringing all the engineered side in as well. So when I came in, it was Fireline, but then I was also told, hey, we're going to try and bring all the engineered side of things up. The fire alarm, the sprinkler, we're running with suppression. And they said, are you interested? And I mean, I'm just, I'm like, sure, why not? I mean,
the more the better.
Exactly. Why would I say no? So that's how that all started. And they would send up, it was all, I don't want to say it was all. I did go to a bunch of schools. We went to, back then, before it was Siemens, it was Pyrotronics. I went to Pyrotronics school, went to Fenwell schools, sprinkler schools, you name it. They sent, and a lot of on-the-job training. So that's how I got put into where I am even today. So, yeah.
Now, how long was the Lancaster office there that you worked for?
Let's see. I started in 98, 99. I'm trying to think somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, so it was there, I think, until about 2005.
Okay.
I think that's when it was there till. So, and then I guess they wanted to run everything based out of Baltimore. So, yeah, and then, I did some transitions here and there, and, ultimately none for the better because, I'm not selling Fireline here, but Fireline was the best. So. Yeah.
And then, so when they moved then out of Lancaster and down to Baltimore, so they just had the Baltimore and Leesburg office. Is that, you did leave for a short time then?
I did. What I did is I left for another fire line had come up with an agreement with another fire protection company up in Pennsylvania, and then there was an agreement. The Mason-Dixon line was a separation point. I don't know the details behind it, but I thought there was like an acquisition or so of the Lancaster branch. Don't know again all the details, and I had gone with them. So
now, did you go with them just because you don't want to drive to Baltimore every day?
Well, of course, sometimes, and I'm not going to lie, you always have that, is the grass always greener kind of thing. You do. Everyone always thinks about it. Some people act on it. I acted on it and was there for about a year and a half or so. And then I was like, no, there was just, we had a thing in Lancaster with customers and their accounts and such. And I have grown to know these customers and our contacts and so on and so forth. And when that acquisition happened, the management from the company that acquired, it didn't seem like it was there, and we were getting a lot of notice on that. So I knew I didn't really want to be a part of that. And then I had called back down and I said, hey, I'm looking to actually come. And they're like, well, you can come to work for Fireline. We got a place for you, but you're coming to Baltimore, Maryland anyway, every day. And I said, okay. So that's how that happened.
Now, when you came back, that's when you went strictly into fire alarm suppression and sprinkler.
Yeah, exactly. I was just engineered stuff then, so I did not. When I was up in Pennsylvania, it was kind of, at some points, it was all hands on deck because it wasn't a large office. Even when that other company acquired them, it was, hey, well, we knew you did this in the past. Well, yeah, that's fine, but I've kind of moved on. Not better than it. My skill set was changing, and I was worth more going that direction than staying with extinguishers and kitchen suppression and stuff and such.
And what do you prefer working on now? Alarms or suppression? Anything in particular that you like better than the other?
I think I really am. I really like suppression, clean agent, special hazard stuff. Alarm's fine, and there's nothing wrong with alarm or sprinkler. It's just suppression. You kind of get the mix of both. You can, some people call suppression they refer to suppression as sprinkler as well as, suppression systems. So,
the outsiders.
Exactly. The ones in the know that, hey, you're wrong. You're wrong. So, no, suppression is very, that's where you see a lot of the innovation anymore. And you do in fire alarm and, some sprinkler as well. There's so many more challenges in suppression world these days, especially with stuff like lithium ion batteries,
Oh, yeah.
The brains are really there. There's a lot of engineering that they're trying to do with all the products and stuff. So I really like that. It's intriguing. But yeah, that's where I'm probably at.
And now you got the new wrench thrown in there with the foam.
Oh yeah.
We just got an email yesterday that Ansel won't even test AFFF anymore.
Yeah, it's funny. You're constantly fighting. Environmental aspects. You're fighting pricing. You're with 3M saying, "Hey, we're not doing Novec anymore." And it throws the whole. Everything throws it in the industry into a tizzy sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So we find ourselves always trying to scramble and say, all right, how are we going to do this? And then that's when some of the best minds come together from all over the world and say, all right, this is what we're doing, or try to.
Now, when you, did someone get you started? Like, what piqued your interest in fire protection to begin with? And then what moved you on to saying, I don't want to do extinguishers and kitchen hoods anymore? I know, just looking at kitchen hoods and how greasy they are, I would never want to get into that. So props to the guys that are out there every day
Yeah.
working on kitchen hood systems.
No, you're 100% correct. Yeah, all you guys out there that do kitchen suppression, I hats off to you. You guys you're awesome, guys and gals. You guys are great. Back to the original, your question, the start of your question, what perked my interest? An ad in the paper saying, "Hey, be a portable fire extinguisher technician." I was like, "Okay." Well, I was working in the parts department of a dealership up in Lancaster. I mean, I went to school for automotive, and I was like, "Okay, well, where I was at, I wasn't going anywhere." I seen the level of respect that all the technicians didn't get, and it was very depressing. At lunchtime, the techs would go in the lunchroom and they would pass around the want ads in the paper, and I'm like,
and this is at the car place.
Yeah,
okay.
This is at the dealership. It was a Chrysler Plymouth Jeep dealership, and I'm just like, I see some of these guys that have been there for 25 years, and I'm like, is this what I want? This doesn't make any sense. Why do I? And at one day, I actually grabbed the want ads. I just passed it, and I just was looking, and I was like, let's give it a whirl. And then I went out, put an application in, and that part of the story is that. And I started with Fireline, and I was there probably 6 months at the most.
Okay.
And that's when they came up and said, "Hey, we need to grow this side of the business." And I said, "We would like you to, come on board and start training for all the engineered side of stuff." And I said, "Okay." And then they would send guys up. And I kind of hit a little bit earlier about, the trainings we went to, but there was a couple individuals from back in the day. One recently retired, Sir Bill Gibb.
We actually have his retirement party today.
Oh, do you really?
Yep.
Oh, good. If I didn't have to get back, I'd just stay around and I would partake in that. No, Bill came up. He was, Bill's great. Bill was early on. I don't know if he was the first, him or Frank, one of the first NICET level 4, fire alarm guys. So he was a wealth of knowledge. Yes, you had to deal with Bill Gibb, but
some things never change.
No, it doesn't matter, but, and all joking aside, Bill's a great guy and he's very knowledgeable.
Very.
Another one that we used to have back in the day, there was a gentleman by the name of Steve Ayers. He was very good as well. He was a very seasoned simplex tech that came from Delaware. Knew exactly what he was doing. He was great on the knowledge side. I learned a lot from him. Other side, on the sprinkler side, I had Bill Gibb was fire alarm and suppression. Steve Ayers was just fire alarm.
Okay.
So you got to learn all the different makes and models, the quirks, stuff that was problematic, and so on and so forth. And then we got to the sprinkler side, and then gentleman Ted. Ted was
Okay.
He came up as much as Bill or more, and he helped out with the sprinkler. He taught me throughout the years how everything worked, what it was, codes, so on and so forth. He was really good at what he still. I mean, I guess he still is. Yes,
Knew the ins and outs of everything.
Exactly. So it was a bunch of years of just following around some of these guys. Not to mention, I would also come down to Baltimore for days of training and so on and so forth. There was a bunch of great techs in Baltimore that I didn't get to see until I came here. Mm-hmm. So,
and you knew like everybody here, and it's funny because I still talk to Reggie almost every day, and we still talk about Reggie and I have grown pretty close. But I'd said I credit you because you like to talk to people. And when you brought me in here,
that's false.
When you brought me into Fireline, it didn't matter what department anybody was in, we would always interact. And, I credit you with me knowing everybody and being able to interact with everybody as well as I do. Yeah. And I know Reggie and I talk about it all the time. If it wasn't for John, I wouldn't know half the people I do now the way that I know them and interact with them. And it's helped through the years, obviously I started out as your helper and then became a tech, and being able to interact with the other departments, because you can get information off of them on, like you said, codes and everything else. So it helps the company overall run a lot more smooth.
It does. The one thing, I don't think it's like that anymore. But back when I had started, it was service versus install, and there was just this rift. And I'm like, you dreaded when you had to cross that parking lot. And you're like, I'm like, I have to go ask install something. I'm going to get yelled at. They're going to be like, why don't you know this? Blah, blah, blah. And like, you had that all the time. And you're like, but, I made some good friends over in the install, and it was great. Even to this day, really good friends with Rich.
Mm-hmm.
Fawn's a great guy.
Fawn is a great guy.
It was great over there meeting these guys.
I want to bring Fawn on the podcast, but I don't know if Kelly has enough beat buttons during that interview.
You know what? I want to sit on that chair when he's in there, because I would like to see that. But no, it was, and that goes for anything, not even just here at Fireline. You gotta bridge gaps. You gotta have communication. You can't be scared to talk to people. And I guess that's not one of my problems. I guess I'm not scared to talk to people. Definitely not. And the same with the suppression, when we had, Dave Riggs here, and now Dave Krenzer, and talking with all these guys, it's all for the greater good. You got to do it. You can't be scared, and you can't be, at the same time, you can't be what's the term I'm looking for? You can't be arrogant, saying, "Oh, I don't need them." No, it's not that you don't need them. It's like, how can we make things run smoother?
100%.
The efficiency is what counts. And when everything's efficient, everybody prospers. Everybody does. So, and that's like what we're working on. We just try to cross train as much as possible.
Yep.
We're a small company. We don't have a dedicated fire alarm install. We don't have a dedicated suppression. It's just like you come to work one day, you're like, okay, yeah, we're doing this, and then we're doing that. So, and
I know when you first brought me in, it was, a lot of the techs were, they either did sprinkler or they did fire alarm or they did suppression. I remember asking you, like, well, what do we do? And we're doing it all. And
yeah.
Like, man, like when you're first coming into the industry, it's like, I'm never going to be able to pick this up, but you do,
No, and when I came in, and even when you came in, there was still, even in service, we had fire alarm service, we had sprinkler service. Yep. And then somewhere in between, there were some suppression guys, yep, which were hybrids. When I came down, I was a hybrid, and that's when you were with me. I mean, that's what we pushed. Oh, yeah. Hybrid. It's like, learn everything. You learn as much as you can.
Yep.
To try to get everything done. I'm not going to swear, but my motto is get stuff done, but I don't use the word stuff. All right. At the end of the day, just get it done. You get it done safely, efficiently, and then cost effectively, yep, So that's what we do.
So obviously you have your own business now, Pletcher Fire Protection.
Mm-hmm.
How long were you at Fireline total?
I was at Fireline for 11. I think I was going on 12 years. Yeah. I left Fireline in February of 10.
Okay.
And I started at the beginning, I guess it's 11 years, beginning of 99, I guess I had left.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess 11 years I was here. So not counting the intern out at that other company. So just because of coming back, but yep, yeah, altogether.
And then starting your own business, that wasn't something you just thought up of overnight and said, you know what, I'm quitting Fireline tomorrow, I'm starting my own business.
No,
and I know, and you can get into it, like how you came up with the process, but it wasn't like you kept Steve in the loop Steve and Frank in the loop the whole entire time.
Yeah, everyone that needed to know knew. And it wasn't because I was trying to be shady about something. It was just, all right, let's back that one up a second. So with the acquisition of the branch going away in Lancaster, I came to Baltimore then eventually and was working. I kept getting phone calls on my personal phone from old accounts I had, contacts, big factories, some offices, you name it. I had, a bunch that were calling me saying, hey, the company that acquired, that's not exactly who we're looking for. We're not happy. Okay.
And they're coming to you because you built that customer relationship.
Exactly.
With them.
I mean, it was a 1-to-1. Like that's, when it was up in Lancaster, it was a little bit different. Lancaster, they might call the front desk, but they would also call me, because it was smaller up there. It was more, and I don't want to use the term intimate, but it was more 1-to-1 than down here. Down here, there was a process. You had, you had sales, schedulers, so on and so forth. There wasn't as many bodies up there to do that. So you had to jump in. You had to even, like there was days up in Lancaster, I had to put my sales hat on. But back to this. So I kept getting phone calls. And, they started off as joking. And so and they hit me up and they said, hey, why don't you guys come and do this? And well, there was an agreement. There was an agreement between that company and Fireline. And they said that, well, we would like you guys to come up here. Well, I went to Steve right away. And I said, Steve, we're getting hit up from a bunch of these old customers. They're not happy. And he's like, well, you know what? There's nothing we can do. And I said, okay. When I went back to some of these customers, and I said, hey, I'm sorry. We really can't do anything. There's an agreement until, I think sometime in 2009 is when the agreement was. And then, some time passed. Well, they come back and they said, you know what? And then this is where they were joking, but they weren't joking. They're like, why don't you just start your own company and, we'll do this. And I'm like, I can't do that. I'm like, I'm working for a company. And so, but then, it got to be honest, it got my...
Piqued your interest.
It did. And I'm like, okay, well, I never thought about doing something like that. So I molded around and I knew what my options were. And I went and I went to Steve and I said, Steve, what about, I'm looking to do some stuff maybe on the side. And he looked at me, and I still remember this meeting to this day. He looked at me and says, you know what? We have an agreement. I can't do anything. So right now it's not necessarily a conflict of interest. He says, but he's looked at me and he brings his hand up because not my tools, not my truck, not my time, insurance is anything. He says, you do this on the side, and I said, oh, okay. So I tried it, and I was doing some stuff on the side, and, and again, I had to, I had stuff and I sold everything I had, to get insurance because insurance for fire protection. I don't know if anyone knows this. It is ridiculous. Okay.
It is.
So, it's that's out of control. So I did that, got it going, had some accounts here and there. And I got to the point where I was doing 1 day a week. I was off. Here I was working 4 days. Some days it was 410, some days it was 48. And then all of a sudden I found myself, it would turn into 2 days. And I talked with, at that point, I talked with Karen and I talked with Frank and they were in the know. And I said, it's getting too much. And I said, it's not fair because I had a company vehicle.
Yep. And
I said, it's not fair that I am taking resources from Fireline and keeping them stationary. There's tools and on the truck and all that. So it didn't make sense. So then on February of 10, well, let me back this story up. But February of 10 is when I went 100%, just Pletcher Fire Protection. But back to this happened in 08, early 08, back to when I talked to Steve, I forgot about this part of the story, is he says, well, this agreement expires in, I think it was May of 09. Mm-hmm. Well, May of 09 came and went, and unfortunately, Steve was getting sick, and Steve had passed away. I believe it was December of 09, and it never got revisited, even though that expired because he said, who knows, maybe you start something, maybe Fireline then acquires whatever you built, and then we push back into Pennsylvania. Well, again, that meeting never happened. And unfortunately, his health started to decline. And he had passed away, I believe, in December of 09. And then by February of 10, I was like, it's not fair to do both.
Yep.
So, and that's when I left.
And now, and then I guess in that whole time, too, there was an agreement that you wouldn't come into Maryland and Fireline.
100%. Yeah, no.
Come after your customers or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely, I explained to him, everything was north of Mason-Dixon line. To this day, we do not have a single account in Maryland. No, I don't,
And you have a great working relationship with Anna and Fireline.
Oh yeah, exactly. So I mean, I've got a great working relationship with the suppression guys, with Anna and Rich, and so it's. I'm not here to step on anyone's toes.
Nope.
We're a small fry. We're the small fish in the big pond. And that's fine. We like doing what we do. So yeah. I mean, it's Fireline to us now is kind of the big brother or big sister, if you will.
Yeah.
So you heard that, Anna, big sister. So no, it's it's a great relationship we've got. So
awesome. Now, how long now has Pletcher Fire been in business officially?
June of 2008 is when it started.
Okay.
So I guess we've been doing this circus for, what is it, 14? Is it 14 years? No, 16 years.
That's awesome.
All right, I might be all right with fire protection, but not math. So.
That's why you have Kim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And shout out to Kim, your wife, who also came along today.
Yep. She doesn't want to be on the mic, which I don't blame her. So, because a lot of times she can't get a word in edgewise.
She's the backbone of Pletcher Fire Protection.
She's the brains, and backbone. And sometimes the foot too. Trust me, I know that one. So.
Obviously you're growing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Everything's going good.
Everything's good. When I started the company, it was just service based, because that's how I was brought up. But now we're more and more into new installs. On the fire alarm side, we're starting to chase the bid more and more up in Pennsylvania. Suppression, we're doing systems here and there, everything from small, clean agents, whether it was FM200, which is not anymore, or Novec, which technically is not anymore, to the bigger systems. And this is where we also partner with Fireline,
okay.
On these big vortex systems. We've quoted Marioff systems, water mist, anything that requires, big amount of manpower.
Yeah.
I have no problem saying, hey, look,
I need help with this one.
Yeah, why don't you guys, we'll partner up, and then we take over the service and the contract and so on and so forth.
Yep.
And it works great.
Being successful together.
Yeah, exactly. There's no competition real between us. So
perfect. Well, again, thank you for coming on today.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. It's nice to come down there and see what's going on.
Thanks for getting me started in my career.
I don't know about that. We'll see in 20 years if you're still thanking me.
September will be 18, so.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's crazy.
No.
It makes you feel old, doesn't it?
No, I need a cane walking out of here. So.
All right. Well, again, thanks for joining us today. And for all the listeners, remember, you can listen to us on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, and follow us on Instagram at @fire_away podcast. Hit those like and follow buttons. And thanks for listening.